שיר המעלות, אסעין אל גרים, מאין יבוא עזרי. עזרי מהם אדוני, עושה שמיים וארץ. אל ייתן למות רגלך, אל ינום שומרך. הנה לא ינום ולא ישן, שומר ישראל. אדוני שומרך, אדוני צילך, עליית ימינך. יומם כשמש לא יכך, וירח בלילה. אדוני ישמורך מכל רע, ישמור את נפשך. אדוני ישמור צאתך ובואך, מעתה ועד העולם.
Kol omer kra v'amar ma'ikra. Kol habasar chatzir v'chol chasto ketzitz hasadeh. Yavesh chatzir novel tzitz ki ruach Adonai nashva bo. Achein chatzir ha'am. Yavesh chatzir novel tzitz. U'dvar Eloheinu yakum li'olam. A voice says, cry out. But I ask, what shall I cry? All flesh is like grass. All of its beauty is like the flower of the field. The grass withers and the flower fades when a wind from God blows upon it. Surely, therefore, people are like grass. The grass withers and the flower fades, but the word of God endures forever. LeDavid mizmor l'Adonai ha'aretz umloat tevel v'yoshveva ki hu al yamim yisadah v'al naharot yechonaneha. The earth is the Lord's, with all of its fullness. The world is the Lord's, with all of its inhabitants. Who may ascend the mountain of the Lord? Who may stand in the holy place? She who has clean hands and a pure heart. She will receive a blessing from the Lord and a just reward from the God of deliverance. Faye was born in 1922. In 1922, Warren Harding was the President of the United States, and bread cost 12 cents a loaf. And the car of choice for those privileged who had a car was still the Model T. Communication has changed. Transportation has changed. Plumbing has changed. She was 99 years old, just a little bit shy of 100 years. Faye was 99 years old, and yet she was ageless. All at the same time. She had a Peter Pan quality to her. She was absolutely able to stay young and to feel young. She could relate to people of all ages. She thought young. She was comfortable with FaceTime, with smartphones. She paid bills online. She had an Uber account. I need an Uber account. This was a sharp lady. She was savvy. She dressed sharp. She looked great, but it was that internal, what was it she had? She had a spark. She had an energy. She had an enthusiasm for life. That distinctive voice. I told her she could be great as a talk show host. Forget about Oprah. How about Faye? She could talk with anybody. She was interested in what you were doing. She had the best and most positive attitude of anyone I've ever met. What a spirit. What a spiritual soul. And she was always like that. I met her in the fall of 1990. She was 67 years old. She was just a spark plug. She and Marvin, she and your dad would come to services regularly. They liked services on Shabbat morning. Your dad had such a kind and warm smile, and Faye had eyes that sparkled and an unmatched personality, and they were just wonderful. They were a wonderful and loving couple. They were handsome together, and clearly the chemistry was there. They loved being in the synagogue. I see him sitting in his seat. He was right on the aisle, and she was right next to him. Faye was someone who fit 25 hours into every day. She was always busy, a full life, very social, very active, whether it was golf or swimming, shopping, playing cards, the travel that they did together, or her organizational work, JNF, the Park Sisterhood, Hadassah, Mount Sinai Board. I know that you said she was involved as the three of you went and grew up in school in the PTA and other school activities, the Heights bookstore, basically years running in a row since the three of you kind of followed each other consecutively. She exposed you to culture, to the theater, to the ballet, to opera, and taught Jeff how to knit, or so he claims. Lots of outings. She took you to museums, or outdoors, to farms. She kept three boys very busy. Do I really need to tell you her resume? No. I could list you things, and you could list more than I could. But you know it already. But you know and I know that the reason you should have a smile on your face is today, and the reason I have a smile on my face today is not the resume. It's because we're talking about Faye. She was effervescent. She was a light. She was so much fun. Being with her was so much fun. That lady must have been born with a smile on her face. She was always bright and happy and positive and hopeful, interactive, engaging, and even in the more recent years. I know if you asked her to go out, you'd need advance reservations to get her time. Her calendar was full. She wasn't waiting around to live. She was living. She certainly wasn't waiting around to die. She was living. She wasn't fearful or timid about life. She was filled with it. She was filled with life. Her mind, even in recent years, still engaged, lucid, focused, determined, independent. She still thought young. She was like a special spice, a spice that you could take and would taste good no matter what else was going on. Her life had a flavor all of its own, and she did it all with love. You knew she loved you. You knew that your mother, your grandmother, your great-grandmother, you knew she loved you. She expressed it. She encouraged you. She believed in you. I know that Faye and Marvin, they traveled the world together, Israel, China, other countries. They loved to dance together and to go out. They were at ease together traveling the world, but they also had a home filled with warmth and with welcome. You came into the Glazer home, and many did. Your friends, their friends, there was a feeling of acceptance there. Growing up, your peers, when you guys were younger, gravitated there. I always tell people there was a custom in ancient Israel to tie a cloth around your front door in order to indicate that a traveler would be welcomed there. If Faye had lived in ancient Israel, her door would have been filled with cloths. Your parents were even-tempered, and they were bright and caring. Everyone was welcome in her life until the day she died. She made people feel comfortable. She'd remember families and names and who was related to whom. I know that she and your dad had been fixed up on a date and liked each other right away. He had enlisted in the army. Before he could go, he suffered a cerebral hemorrhage and was discharged honorably. Such an event might have triggered fear in others, but not Faye. She knew she loved him and told him so. They were married, and they never looked back. He became successful in career, and most of all, they were successful in creating the life that all of you lived. It really is true. Parents really do create an entire reality for their family. And Faye and Marvin created a life that has now affected 4 generations. They loved each other deeply and fully. You always had dinner together as a family. You 3 observed their love affair in the ambiance of your home. Your mom was your fan and your advocate and your role model. As your families grew and new generations were born, they were all exposed to her charm and her energy and her wisdom. To this day, you feel nothing was left unsaid or unexpressed. Marvin passed, and the loss was significant for all of you. Faye had not only been his companion and his love and his partner, but she took care of him in illness. And now he was gone. Faye needed to adjust and recalibrate. No one was going to be Marvin, and life would not be the same. But she moved forward, and she remained active, both with friends and with all of you. She had a lot of life to live. She was a devoted friend to many. Even as some of her friends began to pass away, she remained thoughtful and attentive to others who themselves may have lost a partner. She was thoughtful and kind. She never felt sorry for herself. Even as physically she became more vulnerable with various procedures that were being done, she kept going. There were no regrets in this lady. She lived forward and she looked forward. She was too busy to be sick. She couldn't figure out why her younger friends would sometimes have to cancel the card game. You know, her younger friends in their late 80s and 90s would have to cancel the card game. What's with them? She was born into a life and a family that was close. One of four, she and Arlene, the two girls, were extremely close to each other all their lives. She also loved her brothers. She was very close to her parents. She took care of her mother when her mother had a stroke. And she always kept in touch with her cousins and extended family her whole life. She grew up on the West Side with very few Jews. There was anti-Semitism. She had to face that. Her family were her friends while she was growing up. Her parents had a food cart, West Side Market, a food stand, and a food store. I just want to finish. Can I tell you one more thing before I finish? I've been holding it in the whole time. You know how lucky you are? Do you know how lucky you are? You know how privileged and special this is? All of these years? You realize that? With someone like Faye, of course you'd love to have more time. Everybody would. I get it. But still, you're so lucky. You have your adult lives. You have families. You have generations growing up, and she shared all of it. Unbelievable. So lucky. Say a blessing today. Say lots of blessings today. You do realize that at some point you all became older than Faye? You understand that? I know you. You've all started to reduce your calendars. I know your calendars aren't quite as full. You don't want to lead such hectic, busy lives. It's time to relax, some of you. And she just kept going? You understand that you got older than Faye along the way? When did she get younger than all of you? But she did, because she lived young, and she loved young, and she aged young, and she died young. She lived with a good name, and she died with a good name. I think, Steve, are you coming forward? Was there a word going to be added?
Thank you, Rabbi. This isn't easy on a lot of levels, and probably the most significant level is that the rabbi gave just such a beautiful eulogy to our whole family. And I've got these remarks, and my apologies to my assistant, Lisa, who had typed all these for me, because I have no interest in sharing those. I don't have a chance. I'm Steve Glazer, and I'm the youngest of the three brothers, as my father always called us, the boys. And I have the privilege of at least giving greetings on behalf of my family. And my brothers, we decided just one of us would speak and share on behalf of my mother, and thank all of you for coming and being here, those of you who are here in person, and those of you who are here on the internet, which is something that my mom would be so thrilled with because she embraced technology. And as the rabbi said, she got older as she aged. You know, my mom died peacefully in her sleep. And maybe people don't know that. Someone had come up to me and asked if she had been ill for long. And in fact, I had FaceTimed her the day before she went into the hospital. She had slipped out of bed. She had recently flown back to her home in Florida, and she was getting up in the morning, and I think that the bed was probably of a different height. You ever do that? You kind of slide off, and you think you're going to hit the ground, but it's not there. And so she balanced herself by putting out her elbow to break the fall, and she hurt her shoulder. She knew she did something wrong. So out of an abundance of caution, she went to the hospital. And with some pain medication they gave her, her blood pressure was low, which was normal for her anyway. They decided to keep her for observation. So the doctor comes in, and she's there, and she's FaceTiming her friends, and she's talking on the phone to her good friend Gloria, and they're talking about the plans for what they're going to do this week down in Florida. And so she's dozing on and off, and apparently the doctor tells my brother Jeffrey they have a change of shift. So at midnight, the doctor comes in, the evening shift, and talks to my mother, and she goes on and regales him with stories of her children and how proud they are, or she is of them, and the grandchildren and the great-grandchildren, everyone in the family, and goes on and shares how there are all these events scheduled for November to celebrate her 100th birthday. And she was really looking forward to it because so many of the grandchildren and family members and friends were coming down. And she was boasting about just what a good and full life she had, and feeling strong and optimistic and looking forward to it. And while it's shocking to lose our mother, I know that my brothers and I are so grateful that she then, about 2 o'clock in the morning, apparently went into cardiac arrest. She never woke up, and she had AFib, and her heart stopped, and she died. And with the life that she lived, what could be better for her family and for her friends, and what could make us feel happier for Faye to be able to go out that way? Is something that we should wish for all of us. The last time I FaceTime her, remember a month shy of her 99th birthday, I could see that the angle of the picture was upward on her chin and her hands on the steering wheel. So my mom, and I said, Mom, you can't take the call while you're driving. So she claimed, true or not, that she was in a parking lot. And she was out getting things ready for the weekend for her friends and the activities that she had scheduled. And she was just so vibrant. And I think for all of us, for my brothers, we all feel so grateful that we had all these years. And I think the rabbi put it best. I mean, how fortunate we are. And for those who are friends of hers, we can regale stories. I can keep you here forever, and I should watch my time. But my daughter Dee, when she learned of her grandmother's passing, she was at her synagogue and spoke to her rabbi. And her rabbi challenged her to think of some traits of her grandmother that she might be able to think about and maybe adopt in her own life. And so I asked her what was it that she thought about, and she said, well, you know, Lala, as we called her, or at least my kids, she had so many friends, and she was so outgoing and so warm. And I think I would really like to work at being more outgoing, and I'm paraphrasing, maybe bringing in more friends and be welcoming. So I decided to kind of take the challenge myself, and the one thing that I thought about my mom, and I think for all of us it's so positive, is that she really was strong. She was a force of nature for those people who knew her. And it wasn't just whether the glass was half empty or half full. It didn't matter what the glass was. By force of nature, she compelled it to be full. She was not ever going to take no for the answer. So when she got sick and she needed a second valve replacement in '89, and the hospital, a lot of them didn't want to do it, she just insisted, I'm strong enough, I can do this, I want to do this. And then the story goes that of all the people, the patients that day, she was the first one up on her feet. All right? She had hip replacement surgery, I think 91 years old, up that day. She went for almost 2 months in a row. She had an issue with a leg. She had a skin graft, and she had stem cells, and she had to go drive by herself. All right, 94, 95 years old, for 2 months. She would drive from West Palm Beach to Jupiter, Florida, and then spend 2 hours in an oxygen tent so that she could recover, because she insisted on recovering. The thought of, losing my leg? That ain't going to happen. So she did that, never complained, never argued, never refused to get a driver. And, so she was really special that way. And I think she was an inspiration to her children, to her grandchildren. I asked my fiancée, Mary, I said, what do you feel from my mother? And she said, if I could be more... one thing that she admired so much is that my mom could go anywhere and fit in any group. All right? My mom, she could go to a black tie event. We would go out to dinner in Palm Beach at Renato's, and as much as she enjoyed that, I think she enjoyed more going with Gloria to the Olive Garden for the unlimited salad bar and the breadsticks. Okay? That was so much her. And as we shared, my brothers talked with the people in her building, the ability that she had to go anywhere and connect with people, the people who work in the building. She remembered not just their names, but she knew about their family and would ask about them and had genuine relationships. So if there's one thing, or I guess there's several things that I'd like to try to work harder at adopting, and for all of us, is to just try not to live in and have so much fear of the unknown, or fear of things that may occur, that may not work out. Just challenge ourselves to just will the future that we want. And for all of us, maybe be so fortunate to live to almost 100 and die in our sleep. And anyway, I'm so grateful for all of you to be here, and on behalf of my brothers and sister-in-laws and all of the nieces and nephews and grandchildren, great-grandchildren, I'm glad to have been able to share for at least 71 of my years, and my brothers longer, to share here with all of you and to have all of you be here today. Thank you very much.
The Queen has died, and Queen Elizabeth was born in 1926, 4 years after my grandmother, and Grandma Faye outlived her. She was a remarkable woman. We spent this past summer together playing Rummy Cube, which she loved, and she was a sharp player. And her rules and the way she played were important. 50 points to melt. And you needed a run and a set. And you had a wild card that was worth 25 points. But if you played it down on a set of 3, you couldn't take that wild card until you'd put another tile down to establish the color. And your turn was not over until you said I pass. Sadly, my grandmother has passed, but our love for her goes on. And I just want to thank you all for coming on behalf of me and my family. And thank you.
Please rise now for the memorial prayer.
Hey, malei rachamim, shochein b'meromim, hametzemenu chanechan ha, tachat kanefei ashkin b'mahalot kedoshim udhorim, kezogar garakia mazgerim, atnishmat Tzipora bat Ephraim vesara shekalecha leholama began vatanetay menuchata hanabavalgara chamim hastirai gabeseter knafecha leholamim vetitzuror bitzroram chayim et nishmata Adonai gonachalata, vetanuach b'shalom al mishkava, v'nomar Amen.
May we remember all of the worthy and the righteous deeds that she performed while in the land of the living. May her soul be bound up in the bonds of eternal life. May she rest in peace, and we all say amen.
Amen.
Let's be seated. We want to offer our condolences to the family, Jeffrey and Norma, Alan and Molly, Steve and Mary, to grandchildren, Sarah, Zach and Meredith, Joshua and Yasana, Aaron, Jennifer and Alex, Kim and Jake, Dee and Joe, and great-grandchildren, Rachel, Mara, Kayla, Lily, Dahlia, Natalie, and Charlotte. The family will be moving by processional. We'll all be moving by processional to the burial spot for the burial portion of the service. And then the family will receive friends. That will be today, following services, until 8 p.m. tonight. And the address is in Pepper Pike, 4 Country Lane, Norma and Jeff's house, 4 Country Lane in Pepper Pike, today following services, and through 8 o'clock this evening. Tomorrow, the Glazers and the Glazer family will be receiving people between 1 and 5 p.m., that's tomorrow, and Sunday, they'll be receiving visitors between 1 and 5 p.m., all at that same address, 4 Country Lane in Pepper Pike. Let's remain in our seats for a few more moments. The pallbearers, however, should now come forward. mi yagur b'halacha mi yishkan b'har kachef. Olech tamim u'poel tzedek v'dover emet bilbavo. Lo ragal lishono lo asal rehu ra'a v'charpal lo nasa al krovo. Nivzeh be'inav nimas ve'yirei Adonai yechabed nishpal lahara v'lo yamir. Kaspo lo natan b'neshech v'shochad al naki lo lakach osa ela lo yimot li'olam.
Services will be concluded at the Federal Love Cemetery. We ask that those who are going to that service please return directly to your cars, put on your headlights and your hazard. Thank you.
Standing right there. Yeah, okay. I got it right